Well, why Windows Vista failed? Long story short, few days ago I had an argument with one of my friends. Basically, I told him that Windows 11 is one of the worst operating systems ever. However, that friend insisted that in fact Windows Vista was actually the most hated OS. So naturally, I asked him why, and he gave me a long list of retarded arguments about how it was just terrible and everyone hated it on release. I mean, I hate to be the well-actually guy here, but actually the OS was not that bad. In fact, I'll go as far to say that it was actually a good operating system. However, it seems like many people are hating Vista for the wrong reasons, so I decided to make a video in order to explore why Windows Vista actually failed. So let's go back in time to 2009, 2 years after Windows Vista officially released. Let's take one of the most optimistic scenarios, alright? Let's say you are some guy in 2009. Maybe you are a good system administrator, you did all the research that's reasonably possible about Windows Vista. Microsoft just released Service Pack 2, which fixed most of the bugs at the release, and you finally decided to upgrade from Windows XP. Now, since this is an optimistic scenario, let's say you have an IBM ThinkPad R51, which is decently spec'd. I mean, 2 gigs of RAM, which was pretty good for 2009, an Intel Pentium CPU running at 1.5 GHz, and a shitty Intel onboard graphics card which cannot run Windows IO. So you take your totally legitimate copy of Windows Vista Home Basic, then shove the DVD deep inside the laptop and begin the installation process. Since many users back in 2009 were still using somewhat older hardware, this configuration represents something you would realistically see for an average user back then. Now let's take a look at the installation experience. Obviously, this is going to take at least 500 years since you would have a 40 gigs IDE drive and we're also installing it from an optical media, so I guess let's do a time lapse during the installation. Okay, so that took 2 hours and 27 minutes to install. Definitely not the most pleasing installation process, and this is one of the main things people complain about back then. Since Windows Vista is using file indexing, this made it quite slow on other hard drives. But once you're finally on the desktop, the first thing you'll notice is that while most of the drivers are supposedly installed by default, you will soon realize that there is no network connection. Like, it shows a wireless network adapter apparently working, but the Wi-Fi indicator is off and you will get the error message that Windows could not find any network. I mean, after finally loading, you will notice that Windows Vista is quite snappy, and in terms of resources, it's not really using that much, maybe 500 to 600 megabytes, which is not that bad really. I mean, many people complained back then that it will use a lot of system resources. However, this is well within Microsoft minimum system requirements. Like, you can go to desktop properties, the Explorer Windows is opening super fast, unlike Windows 11, there is literally no lag at all. Now, of course, we don't have Windows Aero since we are running Windows Vista Home Basic, and we have the worst graphics card ever made. But yeah, this is Windows Vista. And this system is running perfectly smooth. I mean, I don't think an average user in 2009 would complain about speed. That's really not the main issue. As previously mentioned, if you had an average hardware back then, you could run it without any problem, really. If we check my computer system properties, we can see that we have a score of 1. This is due to the graphics card, and while normally you will want to swap the generic Microsoft drivers with the official ones provided by the manufacturer, in this case the Microsoft drivers, believe it or not, are actually better optimized than the one from Intel, so we're going to keep that. If we open File Explorer for the first time, it's going to have a small delay, but that will go away with the next boot, so I won't really worry about that. Now we can also check the main boot drive, the C partition, and as expected we have a small shitty drive. There's not really much to say about that. But anyways, back to the topic. If we go to Device Manager, we can see that our Wi-Fi card is missing. Now the problem is that back in the XP era, I mean 2005-2006, manufacturers like Dell, Fujitsu, HP and IBM, which is the worst offender in this case, refused to release drivers compatible with Windows Vista. After a lot of troubleshooting and trying different drivers, both from Lenovo and other sources on the internet, it seems like nothing works, and this is exactly what would have happened if you try to run Vista back then on a laptop like this. Now, well, in early 2008, Microsoft tried to address this issue by releasing generic drivers through Windows Update and at the same time asking manufacturers to provide compatible drivers. However, apparently this was too late. This affected the reputation of this operating system to such an extent that driver incompatibility issues will forever remain in the collective memory. However, there is a solution to this, and I'm going to show you in a moment. Well, now I looked into this network card, and it seems like in 2005 IBM were still releasing laptops with Windows 98 era Wi-Fi cards with a proprietary mini PCIe slot, so there is no chance of upgrading the network card. Instead, we are going to use Windows Update, and this is the only possible fix I can think of, since, as I said before, Microsoft tried to release generic compatible drivers in 2008. I hope we can find the one that we need through Windows Update. So basically I'm gonna try to get this thing online using the RJ45 port and install Legacy Update. This is the first step. Now I got this thing online, we are on cable, and I will install Legacy Update. This tool basically allows you to install Microsoft updates on legacy systems and is quite useful if you want, for example, to use an older PC which is no longer supported. Now we have Legacy Update installed, and looks like Windows Update found a lot of security patches. This is quite surprising since the ISO image that I used for this install was already patched with the latest updates. However, these are not really important. The update we are looking for is going to be in the optional update section. After installing this update, we just restart, and on the next boot we should have internet. And finally, we have a wireless indicator and a Wi-Fi connection. Anyways, this concludes the video with my thoughts on Windows Vista and why it was so unsuccessful. I think the hardware manufacturers back then should get most of the blame and not the operating system itself, which was actually okay. As a matter of fact, I'm also still using Vista on one of my PCs with extended kernel and all patches, and it's still one of my favorite Windows versions. But anyways, thanks for watching and have fun.